Ever felt like most RPGs are just too safe? With the same heroes, same villains, same save the world plot? Yeah, me too. But what if I told you there's a whole world of RPGs out there, with deep, mature stories that'll mess with your head and hit you right in the feels? In today's video, we're diving into 10 RPGs that don't just entertain, they challenge you. We're talking politics, philosophy, trauma, identity, death, and everything in between. If you've ever wanted a game that treats you like an adult and tells a story that sticks, this is your list. When people talk about RPGs with mature storytelling, not enough folks bring up the first Fallout. Yeah, the graphics look ancient today. After all, it dropped back in 1997. But what it lacks in visuals, it makes up for with one of the most politically charged and thought-provoking narratives ever put in a game. This isn't some basic tale of good versus evil. This is a grim dive into a post-nuclear world where survival twists morality, and every choice echoes with real weight. Fallout doesn't hold your hand or pretend the world is fair. It kicks off with you, the Vault Dweller, being sent out from the safety of an underground shelter to find a water purification chip. Sounds simple at first, but once you're out there, you quickly realize how messed up everything is. The wasteland's crawling with mutants, raiders, and people barely holding on to what's left of society. And it doesn't take long before your mission stops being just about saving your vault and starts being about what kind of person you're becoming in the process. It throws you into the ruins of a failed civilization and lets you figure out who you are in it. You'll deal with moral gray zones, power-hungry factions, and desperate communities just trying to hold on to something. The writing is sharp, the atmosphere is haunting, and the world building is ridiculously layered. Every terminal you read, every town you explore, adds another piece to a world that's broken, but still trying. And here's the thing. This game laid the foundation for one of the most iconic RPG franchises ever. Without it, there wouldn't be the newer Fallout games, and certainly not the same sense of depth and consequence. If you can get past the old-school look, what you'll find is a brutally smart game that respects your intelligence and dares to tell a story that sticks. From the moment you step into Yharnam, Bloodborne doesn't hold your hand. It throws you straight into a nightmare soaked in blood, madness, and cosmic horror. And if you're just rushing through to kill bosses, you'll miss what makes this world so unforgettable. The story isn't served up in cutscenes, it's hidden in item descriptions, environmental details, and unsettling encounters that barely make sense until they suddenly do. This isn't a game that tells you what's happening. It shows you a world that's broken and diseased and leaves you to figure out why. At the center of it all is you, a hunter waking up on an operating table with no memory and no clear purpose. You're told you need to hunt beasts, but no one explains what that actually means. As night falls on Yharnam, you start realizing this isn't just a city with a monster problem. The deeper you go, the more it feels like reality itself is falling apart. The line between nightmare and truth starts to blur, and what begins as a hunt slowly turns into something far more disturbing. You piece together a narrative about forbidden experiments, ancient gods, and the fall of a once glorious city to its own ambition. Every enemy, every boss, every crumbling building has a reason to be there, and the more you dig, the darker it gets. The combat is brutal, fast, and satisfying, but it's the lore that sticks with you long after you put the controller down. Bloodborne isn't just about surviving. It's about uncovering a hidden truth so horrifying that most people in that world went insane. This is one of those rare games that feels like a puzzle made of emotions, symbols, and fear. And when it finally clicks, it's unforgettable. Most RPGs hand you a sword and shout, "Go save the world." But Valkyrie Profile does something else entirely. It throws you into a cold, melancholic journey through death, sacrifice, and the weight of fate itself. You play as a Valkyrie, tasked with gathering the souls of fallen warriors for the final battle of the gods. But this isn't some epic feel-good adventure, it's heavy. Each soul you collect comes with a personal tragedy, a life story cut short, full of pain, regret, and heartbreak. The game doesn't just tell you a story, it makes you feel the loss behind every character. It leans hard into Norse mythology, but filters it through a deeply human lens, showing how, even in fantasy, death feels real. The emotional impact hits differently because the game respects your intelligence, as it trusts you to connect the dots and sit with the weight of each moment instead of spoon-feeding everything. One of the most haunting parts of Valkyrie Profile is how it handles the recruitment of warriors. You don't just meet a character and add them to your party, you witness their final moments, sometimes peaceful, but more often violent, unjust, or tragic. The game drops you into their lives at the worst possible time, and then you watch everything fall apart. These aren't nameless soldiers, they're teachers, lovers, siblings, people who had hopes and unfinished dreams, and then, in their final breath, they join you. Valkyrie Profile also stands out for its combat. It blends side-scrolling exploration with a combo-based battle system that's fast, strategic, and incredibly satisfying. But what truly makes it unforgettable is how it ties gameplay and story so seamlessly. Every mechanic feels like part of a bigger narrative about duty, sorrow, and redemption. It's not for everyone, because this isn't a game for people looking for easy answers or shallow plots. But if you're into rich, emotional storytelling and deep character arcs, it's one of the most powerful RPGs out there. And the remastered version on modern consoles makes it more accessible than ever.
Sacred Javelin.
Help me!
Quick break here. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to drop a like and leave a comment down below. I want to know, what's the first RPG that completely messed with your head in the best way possible? Comments help a lot with the algorithm and keep the channel alive with fresh content. Plus, I check and reply to every single one of them. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that sub button like it owes you money. Released in 2000 for the original PlayStation, Vagrant Story is one of those rare games that refuses to follow the same old formula. From the very first moments, you're dropped into a dark, crumbling city called Liamond, a place soaked in mystery, ancient curses, and political corruption. You play as Ashley Riot, a member of an elite unit called the Riskbreakers. He's sent into Liamond to track down Sidney Lostarote, the leader of a religious cult tied to a political assassination. But the deeper Ashley goes, the more everything starts to unravel. Not just around him, but inside his own head. Memories, visions, and strange powers begin to blur the line between reality and illusion. And suddenly, his mission becomes way more personal. And what starts as a hunt for a cult leader turns into a psychological descent, layered with betrayal, war conspiracies, and disturbing revelations. The story doesn't follow a straight line, and that's the beauty of it. It demands your attention, and just a blink, and you might miss a clue that ties everything together. It's not about flashy cutscenes or spoon-fed exposition. It's about piecing the truth together yourself, one fragment at a time. And then there's the gameplay. The combat system is incredibly detailed, and here, you don't just swing a sword. You analyze your enemy's body parts, craft custom weapons, and fine-tune your attacks. The game lets you break it apart, rebuild it, and play it the way you want, but it never makes it easy. Mastering it takes time, and for a lot of players, that's exactly what makes it so satisfying. Vagrant Story was way ahead of its time. It ditched traditional RPG tropes and embraced something way more mature, both in how it tells its story and how it plays. If you're looking for a challenge that rewards patience, curiosity, and critical thinking, this one's a hidden gem that still holds up like crazy. Lost Odyssey dropped back in 2007 for the Xbox 360 during that wild era when Microsoft was throwing everything they had at trying to win over Japanese gamers. And to make it count, they called in none other than Hironobu Sakaguchi, the guy behind the original Final Fantasy. What he delivered was something that felt like a love letter to old-school JRPGs, but with emotional depth that hit way harder than most expected. You play as Kaim, a soldier who's been alive for 1,000 years but doesn't remember most of it. He wakes up in the middle of a war-torn world with only fragments of his past and no clue why he's been cursed with immortality. And as the game unfolds, his memories slowly come back. And that's where Lost Odyssey really shines. Scattered throughout the game are short stories called Thousand Years Dreams. They're basically literary gut punches. Emotional, raw, and beautifully written. And these aren't just side notes, they expand Khayyam's world and add real emotional weight to the entire journey. The story goes deep into stuff like loss, loneliness, and the toll of immortality. And it doesn't hold your hand or try to sugarcoat anything. This is a game that trusts the player to sit with heavy feelings and make sense of them. Honestly, it might be Sakaguchi's best work outside the Final Fantasy series, and it's wild how underrated this game still is. Combat-wise, it's classic turn-based goodness with a twist. You've got a ring system that rewards timing and strategy, and the way immortal and mortal characters interact in battle adds another layer of depth. And yeah, it still holds up today. If you've got an Xbox One or Xbox Series, you can play it via backward compatibility. The upgraded resolution makes it look way cleaner than it did on the original hardware, so there's really no excuse not to check it out. When people talk about Final Fantasy, they usually bring up the flashy stuff like magic crystals, iconic summons, and characters with hair-defying gravity. But Final Fantasy Tactics was a different beast. This one doesn't care about chosen heroes or ancient prophecies. Instead, it throws you into a brutal, tangled web of power struggles, betrayals, and political corruption that feels way too real for a fantasy game. Set in the kingdom of Ivalice, the story follows a young noble named Ramza as he gets caught in a civil war between rival factions. But it doesn't stop there, because behind the battles, there's an underground clash between the church, nobility, and secret societies all trying to manipulate the world from the shadows. And what makes it even crazier is how personal it all feels. Ramza's journey isn't about saving the world, it's about surviving the lies, questioning loyalty, and trying to do what's right in a system built to crush you. One of the most interesting mechanics in Final Fantasy Tactics is how permanent everything feels. If a unit dies and you don't revive them in time, they're gone for good. No reset button, no second chances. And because you've probably spent hours leveling them, unlocking new jobs and building strategies around them, every loss hits like a punch to the gut. It gives the game a sense of tension that most turn-based RPGs just don't have. Also, the job system is insanely deep, letting you customize your team down to the smallest detail. But if you mess up your strategy, you'll feel it. Final Fantasy Tactics was directed by Yasumi Matsuno, the same mastermind behind Vagrant Story, and it shows. The writing is sharp, the world building is dense, and the whole thing feels like a medieval political thriller with swords and magic. If you're into stories that challenge you and battles that demand real thought, this one is a must.
I know you can't have forgotten my face. Do not pretend otherwise.
Yakuza Like a Dragon doesn't just flip the script on the series' gameplay, it flips the entire tone and focus too. Instead of the usual stoic badass from the criminal underworld, you follow Ichiban, a guy who went to prison for a crime he didn't commit just to protect his Yakuza family. He gets out after almost 2 decades only to realize that the world and the people he trusted left him behind. This game isn't about power fantasies. It's about the people who get chewed up and spat out by society. And your party are not legendary warriors or chosen heroes. You're rolling with a homeless ex-nurse, a cabaret hostess fighting for dignity, a washed-up detective with nothing left to lose, and Ichiban, who's literally starting from rock bottom. And together, they take on a world that sees them as worthless. The story dives deep into themes like poverty, social exclusion, broken systems, and the invisible people no one wants to talk about. There's nothing sugar-coated here. You feel every blow, every betrayal, every small win that means the world to these characters. And yet, through all the pain, the game finds space for hope, friendship, and insane turn-based combat inspired by Ichiban's obsession with classic RPGs. And just like any proper Yakuza game, the side content is absolutely unhinged, in the best way. You've got a business management sim where you're turning a failing confectionery shop into a corporate empire, complete with shareholder meetings that play out like boss battles. There's even a Mario Kart-style minigame full of power-ups and street chaos. You can run around collecting part-time hero quests, help strangers with the weirdest problems imaginable, or belt out cheesy songs at karaoke. It's that signature mix of heartfelt drama and completely ridiculous comedy, and somehow it all fits. Yakuza Like a Dragon delivers one of the boldest shifts in tone the genre has seen. It mixes street-level realism with absurd humor and heartfelt storytelling that earns every second of your time. It's a reminder that even the most forgotten people can still fight back and become legends in their own way.
Come on, let's go! You're done now!
Mitochondria began to live silently within our bodies.
Back in the late 90s, most RPGs were still playing it safe, with knights, crystals, and world-ending magic. But then came Parasite Eve, and it flipped everything upside down. This wasn't just another fantasy adventure. This was horror wrapped in RPG mechanics, inspired by a Japanese sci-fi novel that tackled terrifying biological themes way beyond what most games dared to explore at the time. Set in New York City, the story throws you into the shoes of Aya Brea, a rookie cop who finds herself in the middle of a nightmare when people start spontaneously combusting at an opera. What follows is a mix of body horror, twisted science, and a haunting sense of isolation that sticks with you long after the credits roll. The game dives into genetics, evolution, and the terrifying idea of mitochondria gaining sentience. Yeah, it's that kind of crazy. And you're not wandering through fantasy castles or sci-fi planets, you're exploring real grounded places in New York. Museums, sewer systems, hospitals, even Central Park, all turned into eerie, unsettling battlegrounds. There's something extra creepy about fighting mutated creatures in locations you recognize, because it makes the horror feel uncomfortably close to home. And each location ties directly into the story, reinforcing the biological horror themes in smart, subtle ways. But what really made Parasite Eve stand out was how it blended turn-based combat with real-time movement, something totally unique back then. You weren't just picking attacks from a menu, you were constantly moving, dodging, planning your next shot while trying to survive some of the creepiest boss fights on the PlayStation. And with a dark, cinematic atmosphere and an unforgettable soundtrack, the whole thing felt more like a psychological thriller than a traditional game. It was bold, weird, and way ahead of its time, and honestly, that's what makes it so special. Back in 1999, Chrono Cross dropped on the PlayStation and quietly flipped the script on what a JRPG could be. This wasn't your typical save-the-world story. It threw you into a parallel dimension where the main character discovers he actually died years ago in this alternate reality, and from there, things get weird fast. What makes Chrono Cross stand out isn't just the connection to Chrono Trigger, though fans will definitely notice the deep roots. It's the way it plays with ideas like identity, fate, and the ripple effects of the choices we make. The narrative unfolds in layers, always keeping you off balance, always making you question what's real and what's illusion. The game isn't content with just one timeline or one version of events. You're navigating multiple dimensions, jumping between alternate worlds, watching how tiny changes echo across realities. And if that wasn't enough, you're given over 40 playable characters, each with their own backstory, motives, and personality. Not just filler, these characters add depth and emotion to every twist in the journey. And the combat system in Chrono Cross doesn't follow the usual turn-based formula. Instead of just picking commands and waiting your turn, you've got a stamina system that keeps everything moving. Each character has a pool of stamina points, and every action, whether it's a light jab or a heavy strike, costs a bit of it. The catch is that stronger attacks have a lower chance to hit unless you build up accuracy with lighter hits first. On top of that, you've got the element grid, which lets you slot in spells and abilities that charge up mid-fight. And there's a shared field effect system too. Basically, the more you use certain element colors, the more powerful they become for everyone, friend or enemy. It's strategic without being overwhelming, and once it clicks, it feels way more flexible than most other RPGs from the era. It's the kind of story that sticks with you long after the credits roll. And now, with a remaster that actually delivers what it should have from the very beginning, it's the perfect time to experience one of the most ambitious and emotionally rich RPGs from the PlayStation era. Persona 2 doesn't hold your hand, and it sure as hell doesn't water things down. While most JRPGs of its time were busy throwing you into magical kingdoms or teenage coming-of-age plots, this game decided to take a completely different path. Both Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment dive headfirst into darker, heavier themes that most games still tiptoe around today. We're talking about trauma, identity, the blurry line between reality and delusion, and how rumors can shape the world, literally. In Innocent Sin, you follow a group of high school students in Sumeru City who get wrapped up in a chain of bizarre events after a rumor about a mysterious figure named the Joker starts coming true. The more they investigate, the more they uncover a tangled mess of repressed memories, supernatural forces, and a shared past they didn't even know existed. It's a story about guilt, consequences, and how the past refuses to stay buried, no matter how much you try to forget. Then comes Eternal Punishment, set in an alternate timeline where the events of Innocent Sin never happened. This time, you're in the shoes of Maya, a journalist chasing the same strange phenomena from a different angle. While Innocent Sin is about remembering, Eternal Punishment is about uncovering, peeling back the layers of conspiracy and fate in a world already breaking at the seams. But what makes Persona 2 stand out isn't just the plot, but how unapologetically mature it is. This isn't some edgy for the sake of being edgy vibe. It feels intentional, layered, and incredibly grounded despite the supernatural chaos happening around you. The characters aren't just vehicles for the story, they carry emotional baggage that actually matters, and that weight sticks with you. Unlike later games in the franchise that strike a balance between school life and darker themes, Persona 2 dives deep without looking back. And if you feel like a few heavy hitters were missing or just want to discover more games with stories that'll emotionally wreck you in the best way possible, don't miss part 1 of this video. It should be popping up on your screen right now. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment on both videos to help your buddy out.